The call came on a Tuesday evening while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office. Emma, honey, we need to talk about Thanksgiving, Mom began, her tone careful. Too careful. I minimized the spreadsheet showing our company's $340 million revenue projection. What's up? Well, Ashley's fiancé, Harrison, his family is very established. Old Boston money. They have certain expectations about. She doesn't want me there, I finished flatly. It's not like that, sweetie. It's just. Harrison doesn't know about your situation. Ashley told him our family is successful and having you there, well. Mom trailed off. Dad's voice joined in. He'd been listening on speaker. You understand, right? First impressions matter with these people. The Whitfields are connected to everyone who matters in Boston. We can't risk. Risk what exactly? I kept my voice neutral. You know what I mean, Emma. You're 32, still renting that studio apartment, working some entry-level job we don't really understand. Harrison's bringing his parents. His father sits on 3 Fortune 500 boards. His mother chairs the Museum of Fine Arts Gala Committee. Ashley's voice suddenly cut in, shrill and defensive. Emma, don't make this harder than it has to be. This is my future we're talking about. Harrison thinks I come from a family of achievers. Do you know what he'd think if he met you? I looked at the framed Forbes 30 Under 30 cover on my wall from 3 years ago. At the Incorporated Magazine Female Founder of the Year award from last month. At the stack of term sheets from venture capital firms offering to buy into my company at a $2.8 billion valuation. I understand perfectly, I said quietly. Oh, thank God, Mom sighed with relief. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. We'll do something special, just the two of us, maybe next weekend. Actually, I'll be in Singapore next weekend. Closing an acquisition. Silence. An acquisition? Dad's voice dripped with skepticism. Emma, you don't need to make things up. We're not judging you. I'm not making anything up. But that's fine. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I hung up before they could respond. Growing up, I was always the difficult one. Ashley was 3 years younger, blonde and bubbly, effortlessly charming. She'd majored in communications, joined the right sorority, dated the right boys. She worked in marketing at a mid-sized firm, made $65,000 a year, and lived in a trendy apartment Dad helped her afford. I'd been the weird one. The one who spent weekends teaching myself to code instead of going to parties. The one who turned down a business degree to study computer science and mathematics. The one who dropped out senior year to join a startup. That decision had created a permanent rift. You're throwing away your future, Dad had shouted when I told them. Do you know how many people would kill for your opportunities? And you're leaving for some ridiculous internet company. It's not ridiculous. We're building something revolutionary. You're 21 years old. You don't know anything about building a business. Mom had cried. Ashley had rolled her eyes and called me such an embarrassment. I'd left anyway. The startup, a fintech platform connecting small businesses to alternative lending sources, had been acquired 18 months later for $47 million. My equity stake, $3.2 million after taxes. I never told my family. Instead, I'd let them believe I was struggling. When they asked about my job, I said, I work in finance, and changed the subject. When they saw my modest apartment, I didn't mention the $4.8 million loft I owned in downtown Boston as an investment property. When they assumed I took the bus everywhere, I didn't correct them, even though my Tesla sat in a private garage 3 blocks away. I wasn't hiding out of shame. I was watching. Testing. Every dismissive comment, every assumption, every time they chose Ashley's comfort over basic decency toward me, I filed it away. With my $3.2 million, I'd started my own company, Meridian Financial Solutions. We built AI-powered financial analytics tools for mid-market companies. Within 2 years, we had 37 clients and $8 million in revenue. Within 4 years, we had 300 clients across 12 countries and $340 million in revenue. I owned 73% of the company. Last month, Goldman Sachs had valued us at $2.8 billion in a preliminary acquisition discussion. I turned them down. We were worth more and I knew it. My team knew who I was. My investors knew. My clients knew. The business press knew. I'd been profiled in Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal. My family had never asked enough questions to find out. The Tuesday after the Thanksgiving phone call, I had breakfast with my CFO Marcus Chin. "How's the Whitfield integration planning going?" I asked, scrolling through the onboarding documents on my tablet. Marcus grinned. "Smooth. Harrison Whitfield starts Thursday. His background is impressive. Harvard MBA, 3 years at McKinsey, 2 years in private equity. His father personally called to thank you for the opportunity." I nearly choked on my coffee. His father called? Yeah, Richard Whitfield himself. Apparently Harrison's been trying to break out of the family's shadow, prove himself on his own merit. Richard said having his son work for a company as prestigious as Meridian was exactly what Harrison needed. The irony was suffocating. Harrison Whitfield, the man my sister was marrying, the man whose family was apparently too prestigious for me to meet, was joining my company. The company I'd built from nothing. The company I own 73% of. And he had no idea his fiancé's embarrassing sister was the CEO. "Does Harrison know I'm the founder?" I asked carefully. Marcus checked his notes. "The offer letter was signed by me as CFO. Your name is listed on the corporate docs as E. Castellano. You might not have connected it." "Why?" "No reason. Just curious about his prep level." By Wednesday I'd made my decision. I called my executive assistant, Patricia. "For Thursday's executive orientation, I want you to handle the morning session. Give Harrison the standard CEO welcome, but tell him I'm in back-to-back meetings until 2 p.m. Then bring him to my office at 2:15. Any particular reason for the delay?" Patricia had been with me for 4 years. She knew when I was strategizing. Let's just say I want to make sure his first day is memorable. Wednesday evening, Ashley posted engagement photos on Instagram. Her caption gushed about Harrison's family, their refined taste, their impeccable breeding, their standards of excellence. I screenshot the post for my records. Thursday morning, I arrived at Meridian headquarters at 6:30 a.m. Our offices occupied 4 floors of a glass tower in Boston's Seaport District. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the harbor. The reception area featured our logo, a stylized compass, in brushed steel 12 feet tall. I'd designed every inch of this space. My corner office on the 14th floor had a view that stretched from the harbor to the financial district. Awards lined one wall. The other held my degrees, BS in computer science and mathematics from MIT. I'd gone back and finished after the first acquisition, and an MBA from Stanford that I'd completed part-time. My family thought I was a college dropout working an entry-level job. At 9 a.m. Patricia texted, "Harrison Whitfield checked in. He's very impressed with the facilities. Mentioned his father talked about Meridian at dinner last week." At 10:30 a.m., Harrison asked if he'd meet the CEO today. I told him you have a packed schedule but will make time this afternoon. At 11:45 a.m., he just said, and I quote, "I can't wait to meet the visionary who built this place. Should I tell him?" I replied, "Let it be a surprise." At 1 p.m. I reviewed Harrison's file one more time. Harvard MBA, top 5% of his class. Thesis on emerging markets financial technology. McKinsey consultant specializing in financial services transformation. 2 years at Sterling Capital, a mid-tier private equity firm. Solid credentials. He'd earned this position on merit. But he'd also stood by while my sister excluded me from Thanksgiving because I'd embarrass him. At 2:10 p.m. I straightened my Tom Ford blazer, checked that my Cartier watch was visible and waited. Patricia's voice came through the intercom. "Miss Castellano, your 2:15 is here. Send him in." I stood behind my desk, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Boston skyline glittering behind me. The door opened. Harrison Whitfield walked in wearing a navy Brooks Brothers suit, his Harvard class ring visible, his posture confident. He was tall, handsome in a conventional way, with the easy smile of someone who'd never been told no. He extended his hand toward me, his expression friendly and professional. Then he actually looked at my face. The smile froze. The color drained from his cheeks. His hand, still extended, began to shake. "You." His voice came out as a whisper. "You're Emma." I smiled politely and shook his hand firmly. "Harrison. Welcome to Meridian Financial Solutions. I'm Emma Castellano, founder and CEO. Please have a seat." He didn't sit. He stood there, hands still in mine, staring like he'd seen a ghost. Ashley's sister, he said faintly. You're Ashley's sister, Emma. That's correct. Though I prefer to be known here as the founder and CEO of a company you just joined as VP of Finance. I released his hand and gestured to the chair. Shall we discuss your role? He sank into the chair, his face cycling through shock, confusion, and what looked like rising panic. I don't. Ashley said you were. He couldn't finish the sentence. What did Ashley say exactly? I kept my voice pleasant, professional. I sat down and folded my hands on my desk. Harrison swallowed hard. He said you worked some entry-level position. That you lived in a studio apartment. That you'd struggled since dropping out of college. I see. And what else did she tell you about me? That you were. He stopped, clearly realizing how this would sound. That you'd be inappropriate for Thanksgiving. That meeting you would give my family the wrong impression of hers. I nodded slowly. And you agreed with that assessment. It wasn't a question. Harrison's face flushed. I trusted Ashley's judgment about her own family. I didn't think to question. You didn't think to question why someone's own sister would be excluded from a family holiday? I kept my tone level, letting the words speak for themselves. Miss Castellano, I had no idea that you were. Were what? Successful? Educated? Worth taking seriously? I opened a folder on my desk. Let's discuss your role here, shall we? As VP of Finance, you'll oversee our financial planning, analysis, and reporting functions. You'll work directly with Marcus Chin, our CFO, and you'll report to him. Indirectly, you report to me as I maintain final approval on all strategic financial decisions. Harrison's face had gone from pale to flushed. I need to call Ashley. You can call her during your lunch break. Right now we're in an orientation meeting. I slid a document across the desk. This is your 30-day roadmap. I expect weekly progress reports every Monday by 9 a.m. Questions? He stared at the document without seeing it. Does Ashley know you own this company? Ashley has never asked what I do for a living beyond my vague answer of finance. Neither has anyone else in my family. They made assumptions and I saw no reason to correct them. I leaned back in my chair. Now about your first project. We're analyzing the acquisition of a European fintech firm. I need your assessment of their capital structure by next Wednesday. Miss Castellano. Harrison's voice cracked. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Harrison. You need to do your job. The job you earned on your own merit based on your Harvard MBA and your McKinsey experience. The job that has nothing to do with who you're marrying or which family you come from. I met his eyes directly. I hired you because you're qualified. What happens between you and my family is irrelevant to your performance here. Clear? He nodded mutely. Good. Patricia will show you to your office. Welcome to Meridian. Harrison didn't make it through the afternoon. At 4:47 p.m., my phone lit up with a call from Ashley. I let it ring through to voicemail. 30 seconds later, she called again. I answered on the fifth ring. This is Emma. What the hell did you do? Ashley's scream was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I'm in the middle of a workday, Ashley. Can this wait? Can this? You humiliated Harrison. He came home in the middle of his first day, completely hysterical, saying you're his boss? That you own the company he just joined? What kind of sick game are you playing? I put her on speaker and continued typing an email. I'm not playing any game. Harrison was hired 6 weeks ago based on his qualifications. His start date was scheduled for today. I'm not sure what's confusing about this. You knew he was my fiancé. I became aware of your engagement 3 weeks ago when you posted about it on Instagram. At that point, Harrison had already signed his offer letter, negotiated his compensation, and completed his background check. Was I supposed to rescind a job offer from a qualified candidate because my sister decided to get engaged to him? You should have told me. I was uninvited from Thanksgiving, remember? For being too embarrassing to meet Harrison's family. I wasn't aware I owed you detailed updates about my company's hiring decisions. Silence on the other end. Then, Mom said you worked some basic finance job. Mom never asked. Neither did you. Neither did Dad. I stopped typing and picked up the phone. Ashley, I have a 5 p.m. call with our London office. Was there something else? Harrison is devastated. He's talking about resigning. That would be unfortunate. He's a strong hire and we have a probationary period in his contract. If he resigns in the first 90 days, he forfeits his signing bonus and his unvested equity. I paused. That's $200,000 in cash and stock options that would vest to $1.8 million over 4 years at our current valuation. But it's his choice. Emma, you can't do this to him. I'm not doing anything to him. I'm offering him an excellent position with competitive compensation at a rapidly growing company. What you're asking me to do is fire a qualified employee because it's inconvenient for you. The answer is no. Then he'll find another job. He's welcome to try. Though I should mention that in Boston's fintech sector, which is where his expertise lies, Meridian is considered the most prestigious employer outside of the big banks. His father called Marcus personally to say how proud he was that Harrison got this position. Another silence. His father too knows? Richard Whitfield called our CFO Tuesday morning. He said, and I quote, "Having Harrison work for a company as prestigious as Meridian is exactly the opportunity he needs to establish himself independently." It was a lovely conversation. Marcus sent me the notes. I could hear Ashley breathing heavily on the other end. "You're doing this to punish me," she said finally. "Actually, Ashley, I'm doing my job. Harrison's employment has nothing to do with you. What I find interesting is that you immediately assumed his career should revolve around your comfort rather than his own professional development. I need to call Mom. Good luck with that. I have to go." I hung up. My phone exploded. Text from Mom, "Call me right now." Text from Dad, "What is Ashley talking about? You own a company." Text from Ashley, "You are ruining my life." Text from Harrison, "Ms. Castellano, I apologize for leaving early. May I schedule a meeting to discuss my role tomorrow?" I responded only to Harrison, "Of course. Patricia will send you calendar options." At 6:15 p.m. my parents called on FaceTime. I answered while packing my briefcase. Mom and Dad were both on screen, sitting at their kitchen table, faces tight with confusion and anger. "Emma Louise Castellano." Mom began, using my full name like I was 12. "What is going on?" "Ashley is hysterical. She says you own some company and Harrison works for you." "That's correct." "What do you mean that's correct?" "You told us you worked in finance." "I do work in finance. I run a financial technology company." Dad leaned forward. "Run? Emma, stop exaggerating. You can't just." I turned my phone camera to pan across my office. The Forbes cover. The Incorporated Magazine Award. The Stanford MBA diploma. The floor-to-ceiling windows with the harbor view. The Meridian logo on my desk nameplate. Emma Castellano, founder and chief executive officer. When I turned the camera back to my face, they were both silent. "I founded Meridian Financial Solutions 7 years ago," I said calmly. "We provide AI-powered financial analytics to mid-market companies globally. We have 300 clients in 12 countries. Last year's revenue was $340 million. We employ 270 people. Goldman Sachs recently valued the company at $2.8 billion. I own 73% of it." Mom's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Dad found his voice first. That's not possible. You dropped out of college. You live in a studio apartment." "I finished my degree at MIT after my first company was acquired for $47 million. I completed my MBA at Stanford while building Meridian. The studio apartment is where I stay when I work late. I own it. I also own a $4.8 million loft downtown, a house in Cambridge, and a vacation property in Vermont. I'm sorry you found my living situation so disappointing." "Your first company?" Mom whispered. "The startup I joined at 21. The one Dad called a ridiculous internet company. We were acquired 18 months later. My equity was worth $3.2 million after taxes. I used it to start Meridian." Dad's face had gone red. "Why didn't you tell us?" "You never asked. You assumed I was struggling and I let you assume it. I wanted to see how you'd treat me when you thought I was the family failure." "That's not fair," Mom protested. "We never said. You uninvited me from Thanksgiving because I'd embarrass Ashley's fiancé. You told me my presence would give his family the wrong impression of yours. You chose Ashley's comfort over my basic inclusion in a family holiday." My voice stayed level. "I wasn't hiding my success from you. I was testing whether you valued me as a person or only as a status symbol. We were trying to help Ashley. You were prioritizing her image over my dignity. There's a difference. Ashley's voice suddenly joined the call. She'd walked into their kitchen. This is insane. You let us think you were some loser working a dead-end job, and all along you were, what, laughing at us? I wasn't laughing, Ashley. I was watching. Bernie. Every dismissive comment, every assumption, every time you chose convenience over kindness, I remembered. You're punishing us. No. I'm running my company. Harrison is an employee who earned his position on merit. If you're upset that your fiancé works for your sister, that's between you and him. It has nothing to do with me. He wants to quit. Then he'll forfeit $200,000 in immediate compensation and nearly $2 million in long-term equity. His choice. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Emma, you need to fix this. Fire him or transfer him or something. You can't expect Harrison to work for you after the Thanksgiving situation. Why not? His employment contract is clear. His performance expectations are standard. He's qualified for the role. The only issue is that you're all uncomfortable with reality. Emma, please. Mom's voice cracked. This is Ashley's future. Her marriage. Don't destroy it because you're angry with us. I stopped packing my briefcase and looked directly at the camera. I'm not destroying anything, Mom. You are. You decided I was too embarrassing to attend a family holiday. You decided my presence would harm Ashley's relationship. You decided my worth as a family member was less important than impressing people you'd never met. I picked up my phone. Harrison's employment isn't the problem. Your values are. That's not, we didn't mean. You absolutely meant it. You said it explicitly. And now you're facing a consequence you didn't anticipate. The sister you dismissed as a failure is actually successful, and that success is inconvenient for you. Ashley grabbed the phone from Mom. Her face filled the screen, mascara running. I hate you. You did this on purpose. You hired Harrison just to humiliate me. Ashley, I hired Harrison 6 weeks ago. You got engaged 3 weeks ago. I didn't orchestrate your fiancé applying to my company. But I'm also not going to sabotage my own business because you find reality uncomfortable. Then I'll tell Harrison to quit. He will if I ask him to. That's between you and Harrison. But you should know that his father is incredibly proud of this position. Richard Whitfield personally called to express his gratitude that his son was joining such a prestigious firm. If Harrison quits for no professional reason, his father will want to know why. Ashley's face went pale. You talked to his father? My CFO did. Apparently Richard has been hoping Harrison would break out of the family business expectations and prove himself independently. This job represents exactly that opportunity. I imagine Richard would be very disappointed if Harrison walked away from it. You're backing me into a corner. No, Ashley. I'm standing in a corner I built. You're the one who walked into it. I hung up. The next morning Harrison arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Patricia escorted him to my office. He looked like he hadn't slept, but he was dressed professionally, carrying a leather portfolio, his expression serious. Miss Castellano, thank you for seeing me. Of course. Sit down. He sat back straight, meeting my eyes directly. I want to apologize for yesterday. Leaving early was unprofessional. It won't happen again. Apology accepted. Is there anything else? He hesitated. Ashley asked me to resign. I'm aware. What did you tell her? I told her no. He took a breath. I spent last night reviewing Meridian's financials, reading your interviews, researching your background. You built something extraordinary. This position represents exactly the kind of challenge I've been looking for, the opportunity to prove myself outside my family's shadow. I'm not walking away from that because my fiancé is uncomfortable. I nodded slowly. And what happens when she continues to pressure you? Then we'll need to have a serious conversation about our relationship. Because if she expects me to sacrifice my career advancement to protect her pride, we have bigger problems than who my boss is. Fair enough. One rule, Harrison. What happens in this office stays in this office. I don't discuss my family with employees, and I don't want office politics bleeding into Thanksgiving dinners, if I'm ever invited to one again. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Understood. Good. Now about that European acquisition analysis. We worked until noon. Harrison was sharp, asked intelligent questions, caught details other analysts had missed. He'd earned this job and he was proving it. At 12:30 as he was leaving my office he paused at the door. "Miss Castellano? For what it's worth. I'm sorry. About the Thanksgiving thing. I should have questioned why Ashley was excluding her own sister. I should have insisted on meeting you. I let social climbing override basic decency and that's on me. Harrison, I appreciate that. But understand something. I didn't hire you to punish my family, but I'm also not going to manage my company around their comfort. You do your job well, you'll have a fantastic career here. But don't expect me to make this easier for Ashley. She made her choices. Now she lives with them. Fair enough." He left. At 1 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown Boston number. Emma Castellano. "Miss Castellano, this is Richard Whitfield. Harrison's father." I sat up straighter. "Mr. Whitfield. How can I help you? I understand there's been some confusion regarding my son's employment with your firm." "Has there?" My future daughter-in-law called this morning quite upset. She seemed to be under the impression that Harrison should resign from Meridian because of a family conflict. His voice was cool, measured. "I wanted to reach out personally to clarify my position on this matter. I appreciate you calling. Ms. Castellano, I've spent my career watching young people sacrifice genuine opportunity for social convenience. When Harrison told me he'd been offered a VP position at Meridian, I was thrilled. Your company represents the future of financial technology. Working under your leadership is exactly what he needs. I'm glad you think so. I also understand that you're Ashley's sister. The sister who apparently wasn't suitable for Thanksgiving dinner." I said nothing. My son made a poor judgment call in supporting that decision. He knows it. I know it. And now he has the opportunity to prove that his professional judgment is better than his social judgment. I trust he'll take that opportunity seriously. He's been very professional so far. Good. And Miss Castellano? If my future daughter-in-law continues to pressure Harrison to resign, she and I will have a very different kind of conversation. I don't tolerate my family throwing away real achievement for imaginary status. Harrison works for you because he earned it. That's the end of the discussion. I appreciate you sharing that, Mr. Whitfield. One more thing. My wife and I would like to invite you to dinner next week. Not as Harrison's boss, but as Ashley's sister. We'd like to meet you properly, given that you'll be family soon." I smiled. I'd be honored. After we hung up, I texted Ashley, "Had a lovely conversation with Richard Whitfield. He and his wife invited me to dinner next week. I accepted." Her response came in seconds. "You're destroying my life." I didn't reply. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. I didn't receive another invitation to my family's dinner, but I did receive something else. A formal invitation to Thanksgiving at the Whitfield family estate in Brookline. Richard and his wife Catherine had insisted. "We're hosting Harrison's side this year," Catherine explained during our dinner the previous week. "It's important to us that both sides of his future family are represented. You'll join us, won't you?" I'd agreed. When I told Ashley, her response was a string of crying emojis and the message, "I can't believe you're doing this to me." I replied, "I'm having Thanksgiving dinner with my future in-laws. You're welcome to be there too." The day before Thanksgiving my mother called. "Emma, we need to talk about this Whitfield situation." "What situation?" "You're having Thanksgiving with them." Ashley is beside herself. "Mom, they invited me." I accepted. Ashley was also invited. She can accept or decline as she chooses. But she feels like you're taking over her relationship. I'm attending a family dinner I was actually invited to, unlike the one I was excluded from. I'm not sure why that's taking over anything. Silence. Then quietly, "Your father and I would like to see you. Before Thanksgiving. Could you come to dinner this week?" "Why?" "Because we need to talk. Really talk. About everything." I considered. "Monday, 7 p.m. I'll come to the house." "Thank you." Monday evening I drove to my parents' house in my Tesla. The same house I'd grown up in, the same driveway where Dad had yelled at me for dropping out of college. They were waiting in the living room, both of them looking older than I remembered, more tired. "Thank you for coming," Mom said. I sat in the armchair across from them. You said we needed to talk. Dad spoke first. We've spent the last 3 weeks reading about you. Your company. Your achievements. The interviews, the awards, He stopped. We had no idea. You never asked. That's not fair, Mom protested. You told us you worked in finance. You let us think. I let you think exactly what you wanted to think. That I was struggling. That I'd failed. That dropping out was the disaster you predicted. I leaned forward. Do you know why I let you think that? They said nothing. Because I wanted to know if you'd love me without the success. If you'd value me as a person, not as a trophy. And you showed me the answer. You didn't. That's not true, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dad, you told me I was throwing away my future. Mom cried like I was dying. For 11 years you treated me like a disappointment. And the moment it became inconvenient for Ashley, you uninvited me from a family holiday. We thought we were helping Ashley. You chose her comfort over my dignity. You decided my presence would embarrass her fiancé. You prioritized the opinion of people you'd never met over your own daughter's inclusion in her own family. I stood. And now that you know I'm successful, now that I'm someone worth knowing, you want to really talk. Emma, please. Mom's voice broke. We made mistakes. We're sorry. Are you sorry for how you treated me? Or are you sorry that I turned out to be someone important and you missed it? The question hung in the air. Finally, Dad spoke. Both. We're sorry for both. It was the most honest thing he'd said. I nodded slowly. I appreciate that. But here's what happens next. I'm going to the Whitfields Thanksgiving. I'm going to continue running my company. Harrison is going to continue being an excellent employee. And you're going to figure out whether you want a relationship with me as I actually am, or whether you only want a relationship with the version of me that makes you look good. That's not fair, Mom whispered. Neither was Thanksgiving. I left. Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and clear. I drove to the Whitfield estate in Brookline, a sprawling colonial with views of the reservoir. Mercedes and BMWs lined the circular driveway. I parked my Tesla next to a Bentley. Catherine Whitfield met me at the door herself, elegant in a cashmere sweater set, her smile genuine. Emma, we're so glad you could make it. Come in, come in. The house was beautiful, tasteful, filled with the kind of quiet wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Family photos lined the hallways. Classical music played softly. In the living room, Harrison stood with a group of relatives, Ashley beside him in a designer dress, her smile brittle. When she saw me, her face went pale. Richard Whitfield appeared at my elbow. Emma, let me introduce you to everyone. This is my brother Thomas and his wife Linda, my sister Margaret, our cousins from New York. He introduced me as Harrison's brilliant boss and future sister-in-law. And every single person wanted to talk about Meridian, about AI and financial services, about my journey from MIT to CU. Ashley stood frozen, watching me discuss market disruption with a former Treasury Secretary, debate regulatory frameworks with a federal judge, share startup war stories with a venture capitalist who'd tried to invest in my Series A. No one asked what I did for a living. They already knew. No one treated me like an embarrassment. They treated me like an equal. At dinner, I sat between Catherine and the Treasury Secretary. Ashley sat at the far end of the table, barely speaking, her careful fantasy crumbling with every conversation. During dessert, Richard stood and raised his glass. I want to thank everyone for being here today. Family is about more than blood. It's about the people who challenge us to be better, who celebrate our achievements, and who stand by us in our struggles. He looked directly at me. This year we're grateful to welcome Emma Castellano into our family. Not because of her achievements, though they're remarkable, but because she represents the kind of integrity and strength we value. Welcome, Emma. Everyone raised their glasses. I looked down the table at Ashley. She was crying silently, mascara running again. But this time Harrison wasn't comforting her. He was raising his glass to me, a small smile on his face, respect in his eyes. After dinner, as guests mingled over coffee, Ashley cornered me in the hallway. You won, she said flatly. Are you happy now? I looked at my little sister, this person who'd spent years secure in her position as the favored one, now facing the reality that favoritism wasn't the same as value. Ashley, I didn't win anything. I just stopped losing. That's basically the same thing. No, it's not. Winning would mean I wanted your life. I don't. I built my own. I paused. You could have built yours too instead of tearing mine down. I didn't tear anything down. You were the one hiding. I was the one existing. You were the one who decided my existence was embarrassing. I set down my coffee cup. The difference between us, Ashley, is that I never needed you to fail for me to succeed. But you needed me to fail to feel successful. And that's something you'll have to figure out on your own. I walked away. Outside, the sun was setting over the reservoir, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Your father and I want to try again. Really try. Would you come to Christmas? Just us. No expectations. No performance. Just family. I looked at the message for a long time. Then I typed, I'll think about it. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a door left slightly open. Whether they walked through it would be up to them. I got in my Tesla, drove back to my loft and spent the evening reviewing the European acquisition analysis Harrison had submitted. It was excellent work. Sharp, detailed, insightful. I sent him a note. Exceptional analysis. Let's discuss Monday. His response came immediately. Thank you, Ms. Castellano. Happy Thanksgiving. I smiled. Happy Thanksgiving, Harrison. For the first time in 11 years it actually was.